Guest, as I said once again, is Neil Shah, wills and estates attorney. Neil, thank you for joining us once again on You and Your Taxes.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And let's talk now about estate planning, the whole process involved in planning your estate. So here I am. I want to go to someone. I want to know what I have to do to plan my estate. I haven't done any planning whatsoever. I want to create a will. I have done nothing about it so far. I haven't talked to anyone about it. I've got a family. We're, let's say, a family of 4. Let's begin with the very first thing we should be doing as a family to talk about planning our estate.
Probably the single most common question, most recurring question that we get, Rohit, is how do you start this sort of planning? Because a lot of people understand and they fundamentally get that they should be doing this sort of planning. It's just they don't know where to start. It comes down to communication. When you think of any sort of planning, whether it's estate planning, asset protection planning, financial planning, tax planning, it really boils down to the same 2 variables. It's this is what I have and this is what I want to do with it. You know, we've mentioned this before in previous.
Right.
So somebody may be in their 60s, and what they want to do with their assets, if they have a house and a 401k and checking accounts, is I want to make sure it stays within my bloodline. And I want to make sure my children or my future grandchildren are taken care of. Somebody might be in their 30s and they might have young children, and they want to make sure that their young children are taken care of and guardians are taken care of. Maybe somebody else wants to protect against long-term care insurance or long-term care expenses and have some sort of way to pay for that long-term care. So whatever gets you in a position where you can communicate those goals, along with a list of the assets that you have, is basically how you're going to get started. Sometimes it'll be a conversation. Sometimes it'll be a form. Sometimes it'll be some sort of document.
So basically the advice you give them is, let's say your husband, wife, your kids. What do you do? First, the husband and wife get together, make a list of all their assets together, in that case, correct?
If that becomes an obstacle, then I usually discourage it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes inertia sets in. And if I send somebody, hypothetically, if I send somebody a questionnaire, I don't want that questionnaire sitting on somebody's nightstand. I don't want it sitting on somebody's coffee table, or the worst case, the envelope never gets opened up. So yes, it's always helpful to have that, but in order to just start the dialogue, you could probably just rattle off some numbers at the top of your head, just to have that conversation with your advisor, with your attorney at that time.
Okay, but so the family should, but you know, in order to have accurate accounting of your assets and all the rest of it,
definitely,
it's probably a good idea first to talk to your spouse and whatever.
It is.
All right, so that's the first. So basically, is there anything people should do to maybe read up on something? Or is the first thing to do to go to the advisor and say, all right, and then the advisor tells you things like you're telling us, which is put together. So let's go down to the rudimentary, basics first of all. What should I do? I'm sitting here now trying to figure out, okay, what do I have? Do I have a savings account? Do I have a checking account? Do I have investment accounts, property, whatever it is? What do I do first? Start making a list of it on paper?
Is that the best thing? A list is great. Yeah, a list is fantastic. And what you'll find is when you start rattling things down, if you just had some paper and a pen in front of you and you just start rattling things down, like I have a bank account, checking account, you'll see that you'll probably get 75, 80% of it. My suggestion is when somebody's undertaking this process, we all have systems at home. When you get your bank statements, when you get your mortgage statements, you have your own filing system, how things get. Or if you have e-statements, you have a folder where you save all those emails. For 1 month, for 30 days, just suspend your existing statement system and just start keeping a stack separately. This stack is going to be for the purpose of discussing my estate plan. You're not trying to get exact balances. By the time you go in to see your attorney, it's probably already too late. Like the balances have already changed. So you're not looking for the exact balance. What we want is a representative list of the assets that you have, like a snapshot. And the reason we're doing this is we're going to have your conversation tailored to the actual assets that you have. If somebody's got business assets, for example, it's going to be a very different conversation than somebody who's got the bulk of their wealth in a retirement account. If you have a bulk of your assets in real estate, it's going to be different than somebody who has very liquid assets itself. So what the attorney is looking for at the beginning is really just something that shows what the representative list of assets there are, what classifications we're talking about, if we have foreign assets, example. But yes, I think to your example, to your point, start creating a list and then start gathering information to back up that list. More often than not, that initial conversation is going to start with very general concepts. You'll find that any true advisor, attorney, when they come in, you don't really want to go off of that checklist. You want to start with an open pad. You want to start with a blank slate. And it'll be open-ended questions like, tell me what your goals are. What is it that you want to accomplish? And only then is the attorney or the advisor going to be able to get a feel for what's really important. Sometimes it might be, I really love my son-in-law, but I'm a little concerned about my daughter-in-law. So what can we do about that? That's not the kind of thing that you're going to get out of a form. That's the kind of thing you're only going to get out of having a conversation.
Okay, all right. So then again, you have to go back down to the Okay, all right. Let's say I come to an advisor first, right? Now you've given me a whole list of things that you think, all right, okay, this is what I'm looking at. These are the options you have. Now you go back to your family. Is that what people should do normally?
Yep.
Go back because
Go ahead. My strong suggestion is you keep the family out of it.
Okay.
If I'm dealing, at least at this point, I think there's going to come a point. But initially, we're going to be at what we call this conversation point. And every attorney is going to handle it a little differently, but fundamentally, we're all going to the same model here. There's going to be a conversation and a discovery point. And during the discovery, we're trying to find out what's important for the family.
Yeah.
And I want to keep husband and wife involved, because when you start getting kids involved, sometimes they have opinions that mom and dad may not necessarily share.
Okay.
So I want to try to get the spouses involved to the extent possible. Now, dealing with the Indian population like I do, especially the older generation, we know that often there's a patriarch that tends to take control of the whole process. And I'm okay with that. But it's really important to me that the matriarch, the mom, also understand what's going on with this planning.
Yeah.
Couple of reasons. First of all, ethically, as attorneys, we're all required to make sure that both of our clients understand what it is we're getting into. But secondly, studies show the husband tends to pass away first. And if mom is alone, I want her to get her finger on the pulse of the finances, on the pulse of the estate plan.
Right.
Keep the kids out of the step at that point. Let's do what we call a design meeting. So after we've discovered what's important, the next step is to start designing it. And during the design, we're going to start asking questions like who should be trustees, who should be guardians, who should be executors. And in order to get into that point, I sometimes don't want to have other parties like children or in-laws involved in that conversation, because I want the parents or the people that we're planning for specifically to speak freely without worrying about being judged.
Okay. Neil, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to then ask you the next question as we come up is when people should begin the actual planning process.
You got it.
My guest is Neil Shah, wills and estates attorney. We're talking about the estate planning process, the process by which you plan your estate, your wills, all the rest of it. We'll be right back after this.